A few episodes ago, we talked about why identity is the foundation of everything when you are rebuilding your life or reinventing yourself. So, we know identity matters. We get that. But how do you actually do the work? That's what we'll talk about today. Hi, I'm Sharlene Lee. Welcome to Your New Chapter, the podcast for women who are starting over and ready to do the work of rebuilding from the inside out, stepping into who they're becoming with clarity and intention. Hi friends, welcome back to Your New Chapter. I appreciate you choosing to be here so much. Thank you. Now, in the episode, one reason rebuilding your life can feel so hard and why identity is the answer, we talked about why identity is the foundation of everything. And we looked at how false identities are formed, the difference between true and false identity, and why trying to rebuild without addressing identity first just doesn't work. Today, we're getting really practical. I'm going to walk us through the 5 key areas of identity work, what each area involves and why it matters, and why together these 5 areas create something really powerful and what your next step looks like when you're ready to begin. Because I find that when women can see the work ahead clearly, it stops feeling daunting and starts feeling like something genuinely within reach. And that is exactly where I want you to be by the end of this episode. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into the 5 areas, I just need to take a moment to connect back to what we've covered in that earlier episode without repeating the whole thing. We established that most of us are living from an identity that is at least partially false. And I'm not talking about false in the sense of you being dishonest, but false in the sense of incomplete. It's formed in a response to the world around us rather than from the truth of who we actually are. In that episode, I said something that I really want you to hold on to as we go through today's content. In that episode, I said, I don't help women to rediscover themselves. I help women to uncover who they've always truly been. Because you're not starting from scratch. You are not becoming someone new. You're uncovering someone who's always existed, someone who was there before all the layers were added. That is the spirit of everything we're going to walk through today. So let's look at those 5 areas of identity work that I mentioned. The identity work I do covers 5 key areas, and as we walk through them, I want you to just notice which of them feels like the thing you'd most like to address. Just notice that one thing, okay? Number 1 is shedding false identities, releasing the versions of yourself that were never truly you. As we talked about in episode 2 of this season, which was titled, What Brings Us to the Point of Starting Over or Reinventing Ourselves, we spoke about the versions of ourselves that can be created. The performed self, the chosen but wrong self, the survival self. These versions of you served a real purpose, but they're not the whole story, and carrying them into your new chapter is one of the main reasons starting over can feel so hard, because you're trying to build something new while still wearing the old, and it just doesn't fit. Shedding these false identities and any other labels that have been attached to you is not about rejecting who you've been. It's about making space for who you actually are. And that process begins with awareness, seeing clearly which identities you have been carrying that no longer belong to you. That awareness alone is genuinely powerful. Number 2 is clarifying your true identity. Once you begin to shed what is false, the work of clarifying what is true can begin. This is the work of getting underneath all the layers, the roles, the expectations, the survival mechanisms, and asking, Who am I when all of this is removed? What is actually true about me? What has always been true about me, even when it was buried? Now, this is not a question you answer once and quickly move on. It's a question you sit with and explore and return to. And doing this in community is very powerful. And the answers that emerge, often slowly, often surprisingly, are the most important answers you will ever find because they're yours. Genuinely, authentically yours. When you realize who you truly are, there's such delight. And it's like, oh yeah, that is true about me. It's actually a really enriching experience because it's like you remember who you are. In my own journey, I remember something really specific that happened in terms of remembering who I truly am and what I like. I remember after quite a difficult season, I was on this journey of really discovering myself. And I'd mentioned to a friend that I was in a shoe store and I was kind of dancing down the aisles and just, looking at shoes. And I told her I felt so happy. And she said to me, oh, yeah, because you love shoes. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh, yeah, that is true about me. I love shoes. And I know it sounds really small, but it was like a part of me that had been covered up or suppressed was finally alive again. And as you go through this process, you'll start to realize small things about yourself that make up who you truly are. So it's actually a really exciting phase to be in. The third part of this identity work is defining core values and decision making. Now, this is one of my personal favorites because the impact it has is so immediate and so practical. Your values are your internal compass. They are what you use to navigate decisions, not just big life decisions, but the everyday ones too. When you know what you truly value in this season of your life, decisions feel clearer, more grounded. They feel more like you. Now think about how many decisions you make every single day. What you say yes to, what you say no to, how you spend your time and your energy. When your values are unclear, all of those decisions feel hard. But when you know what genuinely matters to you now, when faced with a decision, all you have to ask yourself is, does this align with my values? If it does, then you're free to choose whatever it is that you're deciding about. But if it doesn't, it's an easy no. A practical example here. If you choose to be in the dating scene and you meet a guy and you're kind of unsure about whether to continue to see him, just ask, does who he is, how he conducts himself, and the values he has shown you align with my values? If the answer is no, then you need not waste your time pursuing that relationship, which actually frees you up for meeting someone who is better aligned to what's important to you. Simple, and those decisions are really easy when you are clear about your values. Number 4 is boundaries. Now, this next one might surprise you as part of identity work, but stay with me. Boundaries are actually one of the most powerful expressions of identity. When you know who you are and what you value, boundaries become natural. They stop feeling like confrontation or conflict and start feeling like the natural expression of knowing what you will and won't compromise on, what protects your peace, your values, and your sense of self. I recently read a book on boundaries called Living Boundaries, and I had the pleasure of interviewing the author, Glenn Alex. Her insights about boundaries are so important that I'll actually be sharing that interview with you in an upcoming episode. We include work on boundaries when working on identity because without identity clarity, boundaries can feel uncomfortable. Maybe even selfish, but with clarity about your identity, boundaries feel like the most natural thing in the world because they're simply you showing up as you and protecting what matters to you. And number 5 on this list is purpose. What lights you up? Now, I want to say something about this that I think is really important and I feel quite strongly about. Purpose is not something you have to figure out separately from who you are. It flows naturally from your identity. And when you know who you truly are, your values, what genuinely lights you up, the things that energize you rather than drain you, purpose stops being a mystery and starts becoming obvious. This part of the work is about getting curious, and it's so much fun. Exploring your passions and interests, paying attention to what makes you come alive, and then following those cues because they are always there. And even when they've been buried under years of living for everyone else and being who everyone else needed you to be, there are clues. So these are the 5 areas, and here is what I love about them. They're not random, they build on each other. You shed what's false, you clarify what's true, you define what you value and protect it with boundaries, and your purpose flows naturally from all of it. Together, they create something really powerful and absolutely beautiful, a clear, grounded sense of who you actually are, the foundation from which everything you are building next gets built. I know this works because I walked through this exact process, so I know just how freeing and empowering it is, and I want as many other women as possible to experience this same freedom and joy. So bringing this all together, friend, today we got really practical about identity work. We walked through the 5 areas: shedding false identities, clarifying your true self, defining your core values, building boundaries, and exploring your purpose. And we talked about how together these 5 areas create the internal foundation that makes everything else, every decision, every direction, every new beginning feel clearer and more aligned. If you heard something in today's episode that made you think, I'd like to explore that more, I would love to support you in that exploration. This work around identity is at the heart of my coaching, and I have an entire program dedicated just to identity where we get to go deep on each of these 5 areas together. If that sounds like exactly what you need right now, head to my website, sharlenelee.com, which is linked in the show notes, and book a complimentary discovery call with me. No obligation, just an opportunity for us to talk about where you are, what you're stepping into, and how we can work together to get you there. The link is right there in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today. Take care of yourself this week, and I'll see you in the next episode.